Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into the turbulent reign of Sultan Mustafa II, a ruler whose story is a dramatic blend of battlefield ambition, political turmoil, and a tragic fall from power. He ascended to the Ottoman throne in 1695, inheriting an empire deep in the throes of the Great Turkish War, a conflict that had been raging for over a decade against the Holy League. Unlike his immediate predecessors, Mustafa II was not content to remain in the palace. He was a man of action, determined to lead his armies personally and reverse the tide of Ottoman defeats. This was a bold move, harking back to the glorious days of sultans like Suleiman the Magnificent, full of vigor and martial spirit. He proclaimed his intention to restore the empire's honor on the battlefield. His initial campaigns showed promise. In his first year, he successfully recaptured the island of Chios from the Venetians and led his army into Hungary. He won several early victories against the Habsburg forces, boosting morale across the empire and giving his people hope that a turning point was near. He saw himself as a Ghazi, a holy warrior, and his personal presence on the front lines inspired his troops. For a moment, it seemed as if the old Ottoman military might was being rekindled under his command. However, this initial success was short-lived. The real test came against one of the most brilliant military commanders of the age, Prince Eugene of Savoy. The ambitions of the Sultan and the genius of the prince were destined to clash, and their confrontation would have devastating consequences for the Ottoman Empire. The pivotal moment arrived in 1697 at the Battle of Zenta. Mustafa was leading his army across the Tisza River in modern-day Serbia. Prince Eugene, seizing a tactical opportunity, launched a surprise attack while the Ottoman army was vulnerable, caught in the middle of crossing the river. The result was an absolute catastrophe. For the Ottomans, the Grand Vizier was killed, the army was annihilated, and the royal treasury and the imperial seal of the empire fell into enemy hands. It was one of the most crushing defeats in Ottoman history. Mustafa II, who was on the other side of the river, could only watch in horror as his army was destroyed. He was forced to retreat in humiliation. The disaster at Zenta broke the back of the Ottoman war effort. The empire was exhausted. Its treasury was empty and its military was shattered. There was no choice but to sue for peace. In 1699, the Treaty of Karlowitz was signed. This treaty was a landmark moment, and not in a good way for the Ottomans. For the first time, the empire was forced to cede vast territories to its European adversaries. Hungary was lost to the Habsburgs, marking the end of Ottoman expansion into Europe and the beginning of a long, slow retreat. The psychological blow was immense. The once invincible empire was now on the defensive. After the humiliation of Karlowitz, Mustafa II returned to his capital, but he was a changed man. The energetic warrior sultan was gone, replaced by a ruler who seemed to have lost his will. He retreated from the affairs of state, turning his back on the political complexities of Istanbul. He developed a deep passion for hunting and spent most of his time at his palace in Edirne, the former Ottoman capital. This withdrawal created a power vacuum in Istanbul. While the Sultan was away enjoying his hunts, his former tutor, Sheikul Islam Feyzullah Effendi, began to consolidate immense power. Feyzullah Effendi was a highly influential religious figure, but he used his proximity to the Sultan to engage in widespread corruption and nepotism. He appointed his relatives and cronies to high positions, sold government offices to the highest bidder, and amassed a huge personal fortune. His influence became so absolute that no major decision could be made without his approval. This situation bred deep resentment. The Janissaries, the elite infantry corps, were angry about their pay being in arrears and their diminished role after the war. The ulama, the religious scholars, were scandalized by Feyzullah Effendi's corruption and his blatant disregard for Islamic law. The common people of Istanbul were suffering from high taxes and economic hardship, and they blamed the absent sultan and his corrupt favorite. The city was a powder keg of discontent, just waiting for a spark. That spark came in 1703. A group of Janissaries, initially protesting about overdue pay, found their small mutiny quickly escalating into a full-blown rebellion. They were joined by other soldiers, artisans, religious students, and ordinary citizens of Istanbul. The movement, which began in the capital, became known as the Edirne incident because its ultimate goal was to confront the Sultan in Edirne. The rebels presented a clear set of demands. They wanted the execution of the corrupt Sheikh Islam Faisal Effendi and the deposition of Sultan Mustafa II. They argued that a sultan who neglected his capital and his people, preferring hunting to governing, had forfeited his right to rule. A massive armed procession marched from Istanbul to Edirne. When the rebel army reached Edirne, Mustafa's authority completely collapsed. The troops he sent to stop the rebellion ended up joining it. Facing an overwhelming force and abandoned by his own soldiers, the Sultan had no choice but to surrender to their demands. His once powerful favorite, Faisal Effendi, was captured and brutally executed by the rebels. Then they came for the Sultan himself on August 22nd. 1703, Mustafa II was formally deposed. The warrior sultan who had dreamed of reconquering Hungary was now a prisoner. His brother, Ahmed III, was placed on the throne. Mustafa's fall was swift and total. He was confined to the palace, and just a few months later, in early 1704, he died, likely from natural causes. Though his spirit was surely broken, the reign of Mustafa II is a tragic story. It began with such high hopes and a genuine desire to restore the empire's glory. He was brave and he was willing to lead from the front. But a single catastrophic defeat shattered his confidence and led him to abandon his duties as a ruler. His neglect allowed corruption to fester, which in turn ignited a popular uprising that cost him his throne and ultimately his life. His story serves as a powerful lesson on the importance of leadership, not just on the battlefield, but also in the difficult day-to-day business of governing. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this dive into Ottoman history interesting, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the past. Let us know in the comments which historical figure you'd like to see us cover next. See you in the next video.